If war breaks out, what is the most terrifying weapon? Many people picture nuclear bombs, stealth fighters, or aircraft carriers. But what if I told you that what terrifies soldiers the most right now is a civilian drone you can buy on a regular online marketplace? Would you believe it? This is not a joke. Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022 unexpectedly turned that land into the most authentic modern weapons testing ground in history. Over the past 4 years, we have learned more from it than from the combined military exercises of the previous 30 years. Today, let us seriously discuss the tough lessons this battlefield has taught us. Start with a scene you probably have not imagined. Picture a Ukrainian soldier with a GoPro action camera attached to his helmet, hiding in the corner of an abandoned building, breathing heavily. Suddenly, a buzzing sound approaches from afar. Not an airplane, but the distinctive electric motor whine of a drone. The noise grows louder and clearer. Then, boom, an explosion. I have seen this exact scene dozens of times on social media, from both Russian and Ukrainian sides. Every time, it sends chills down the spine. This is now routine on the battlefield. Drones have become the core weapon of this war. Here is a jaw-dropping number. A modified civilian drone costing $300, fitted with a $50 RPG warhead, can destroy a main battle tank worth $4 million, along with the 4 highly trained elite soldiers inside it. What does this mean? A cost exchange ratio of 10,000 to 1. This is what asymmetric warfare looks like. Using extremely low cost means to eliminate extremely high-value targets. Even more shocking is the scale. Both sides consume tens of thousands of these drones every month. So many that Elapin soldiers have started carrying 12-gauge shotguns. Why? Because when a drone dies from overhead, birdshot from a shotgun turns out to be more effective than expensive electronic jamming equipment. It sounds like a historical joke, but this is the real answer. From the Ukrainian battlefield, of course, modified civilian drones are just the appetizer. Now dozens of new military-grade drone models enter production every year, in all shapes, sizes, and functions. Produced and deployed by the tens of thousands. Drones are no longer just airborne, ground unmanned. Combat vehicles have appeared, armed with 50 caliber machine guns, and remotely operated. Ukraine has even developed maritime drone warfare. A surface drone called Magora V5 has already sunk multiple major Russian warships. The latest version of Magora can carry close to 650 kilograms of explosives, and is equipped with air defense missiles on top to counter Russian helicopters. Imagine 50 of these high-speed unmanned surface vessels charging simultaneously toward an aircraft carrier strike group, while swarms of aerial drones attack from above. This is almost impossible to defend against. It also means that super aircraft carriers, those $100 billion behemoths, will become increasingly awkward in future wars after drones. Let us talk about misses. Russia has long bet on long-range firepower. The reason is simple. It knows it cannot compete with NATO in conventional air power, so it has invested heavily in various missile systems for decades. This strategic bet has paid off on the Ukrainian battle. Among the standouts is the Iskander-M missile. It is a mobile ground-launched hypersonic missile that Russia produces in large quantities. Its range reaches 500 kilometers with a 700-kilogram warhead. More critically, its speed, burnout velocity, reaches 5.9 times the speed of sound. It can maneuver mid-flight and releases decoys and jamming rounds near the target to fool defense systems. The result: American-supplied Patriot air defense systems in Ukraine often struggle against Iskander. Another star weapon is the American HIMARS multiple-launch rocket system. In the early stages, it was practically a lifeline for Ukraine, precisely striking Russian ammunition depots, fuel storage, and troop concentrations with stunning effect. But as the war progressed, Russia figured out how to jam the GPS guidance signals used by HIMARS, greatly reducing its effectiveness. Ukrainian and American engineers are of course working on countermeasures, but this has turned into an endless cat-and-mouse game. Here's a key lesson. Electronic warfare is the true invisible protagonist of the modern battlefield. Whoever can jam the enemy's signals can turn their precision-guided weapons into duds. The future battlefield will be flooded with radio signals and microwaves. The importance of electronic warfare will only grow. So what do all these lessons mean for us as Invez? First, let us be clear about one major trend. Drones, electronic warfare, and low-cost precision-guided munitions are the 3 most certain investment directions for militaries over the next decade. Traditional large tanks, aircraft carriers, and manned fighter jets will gradually lose prominence. Replacing them are cheap, Intelligent, expendable unmanned sys among publicly listed companies that benefit most directly from this track. A few are worth watching. AeroVironment, ticker AVAV, produces the Switchblade series of loitering munitions, tube-launched reconnaissance, and strike drones that have seen heavy use on the Ukrainian battlefield. Another is Red Cat Holdings, ticker RCAT, focused on small military drones. It recently won a U.S. Army contract for the Black Widow reconnaissance drone. Then there is Anduril, a Silicon Valley-style defense tech startup that is growing rapidly, though it remains private. For now, of course, traditional defense giants, Lockheed Martin and Northrop Grumman, also have drone programs, but their focus remains on expensive large-scale systems, which do not have the advantage in the emerging logic of warfare. In short, the Ukrainian battlefield has ushered us into an entirely new military era. Cheap, intelligent, expendable, unmanned systems are replacing all the expensive big bores. This is the direction of the times. We will continue digging deeper and clarifying the investment logic and future discussed before talking about the Iran war. Let me ask you one question first. Which city in the world do you think has the tightest defense? Many might say Washington or Moscow, but actually a stronger contender exists. Tel Aviv in Israel. This city is surrounded by Iron Dome, David Sling Patriot, THAAD, layered air defense systems like a steel dome overhead. Some military analysts say that apart from Moscow, Israel may be the most heavily defended place on Earth. Yet Tel Aviv still got hit. This is the most sobering lesson from the 2026 Iran war. In the face of drones and missiles, no one is absolutely safe. No matter how thick your air defense network is, if the opponent has enough $20,000 drones, they can keep saturating you until your multi-million-dollar interceptors run out. Sooner or later, something gets through. This is a simple math problem that the defender can never solve correctly because their cost structure is losing from the start. Now let us zoom out and look at the full picture of this void. Unlike the meat grinder ground war in Ukraine, the Iran war was a purely long-range conflict. No artillery barrages, no infantry assaults, no trenches, only missiles and drones crossing hundreds or even thousands of kilometers. The protagonists fall into two categories: ballistic missiles, extremely fast but hard to make precise, and drones, slower but with ranges up to 1,500 kilometers and capable of mass longs. Iran's Shahd 136 drone played the central role in this conflict. Simple structure, delta wing, piston engine, driven propeller, wings containing fuel, fuselage holding, the warhead and guidance system, low cost, mass producible, decent accuracy. Iran used it to successfully strike oil refineries and petroleum infrastructure in Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Bahrain, each attack directly pushing up global oil prices. The United States has been learning too, developing an almost identical drone called Lucas. Interestingly, one Lucas drone recovered intact in Iraq was found to carry a Starlink satellite antenna. Why? Because BS jamming on the battlefield was so severe that they had to switch to Elon Musk's satellite network for navigation. In this war, even Elon Musk became an invisible participant. Next, let us discuss a headache for all military analysts. Decentralized command structure. American and Israeli claims have severely damaged Iran's top military leadership, but the weapons remain. Underground ammunition depots scattered across the country, some buried 30 meters deep in rock, are untouchable. Ballistic missiles are hidden under camouflage tarps or disguised as ordinary trucks. Numerous field commanders carry their own regional arsenals and operate largely autonomously, following only broad initial orders. This creates an extremely dangerous situation. Previously, the two governments maintained a kind of tacit understanding, for example, avoiding strikes on each other's oil infrastructure because it is the economic lifeline of the entire region. But now, with Central Command disrupted, that fragile tacit agreement is gone. Field commanders scattered across the country start acting on their own judgment. As a result, refineries in Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates began taking hits, and oil prices soared. Negotiations with whom? There is no one left with real authority to decide. This is a threat state that is extremely hard to completely eliminate and extremely hard to negotiate away. Now, let us talk about something you may not have paid much attention to, but which is actually very important. Artificial intelligence generated fates every day in this war. Massive amounts of AI-generated fake videos circulate on social media. One video claiming to show an Iranian ballistic missile hitting Tel Aviv received 25 million views on X, even though it was obviously AI-generated. More ironically, some people used X's own AI assistant, Grok, to Boolean verify the video, and Grok said, real. But Grok has no ability to detect AI fakes. It was just guessed. This is the new dimension of information warfare. AI makes fake reproduction cost almost nothing, while the spread speed is dozens of times faster than real battlefield reporting. The ideal fog of war has never been thicker. In the future, AI-generated disinformation will become a standard propaganda weapon used on a large scale in every continent. Finally, we must address a potential hidden concern: ammunition inventory depth. American and Israeli weapons performed very well in this war. Sea-launched Tomahawk, cruise missiles, various stealth, air-launched missiles, precise and lethal, Patriot and Theed air defense systems also downed large numbers of Iranian missiles. But the question is, how much is left in the Ukraine war? The United States has already consumed huge amounts of stockpiles and sent large quantities to Israel for the Gaza conflict. Trump publicly stated that America's mid to high-end weapons, Butchin stocks, are sufficient to fight for a long time. But he also admitted that the very top-tier weapons are not at the level we would like. Translation: Tomahawk cruise missiles and top-end air defense missiles are not abundant right now. Behind this lies a bigger strategic logic. If the United States depletes too much in the Middle East, and China then moves on Taiwan, will America still have enough munitions to support Taiwan's defense? This is not paranoia. It is a real strategic risk. From an investment perspective, this war has reinforced several high-certainty trends. First, demand for air defense systems will continue to surge. The Iran battlefield proved that intercepting drones and missiles is extremely expensive. Countries need massive reserves of defensive munitions. Raytheon Technologies, ticker RTX, a key producer of Patriot missile components, is a direct beneficiary. Second, production and R&D investment in drones will accelerate further bulk procurement of low-cost attack drones like Lucas. Plus, reconnaissance drones is a long-term trend. Ave's Switchblade and RCAT's Black Widow fit squarely in this direction. Third, satellite communications. Starlink served as a backup navigation solution amid GPS jamming in this war, fully validating the wartime value of comm satellites. SpaceX remains private, but the trend is impossible to ignore. To summarize the core of this discussion, the Iran battlefield tells us that the logic of modern long-range war is cheap weapons saturating expensive defense systems until the defender's munitions are exhausted. This is a systemic structural disadvantage for the defense side. Add decentralized command, creating uncontrollability, plus AI fake content fueling cognitive warfare, and these are the two new dimensions this war introduced. They are profoundly changing how we understand future conflicts and reshaping the investment map for the defense sec. After all this groundwork, today we finally reach the hardest core part. Where should the money go? But before giving answers, let me first make one thing clear. Why expensive is not necessarily good. The story starts with an aircraft called the M98 Reaper drone. This is the most famous US military drone built by General Atomics. Its wingspan is wider than a truck. It can fly continuously for over 20 hours and carry Hellfire missiles and guided bombs. It serves as both scout and striker and was once the NK's hunter of counterterrorism wars. In Iraq and Afghanistan, facing opponents with no air defenses, it operated with impunity. But on the Iran battlefield, the Reaper met a real opponent. Within 2 weeks, at least 10 MQ-9s were shot down. Each costs $33 million. 10 of them equals $330 million. Gone. What Iran used to down them was something called the 358 missile, essentially a loitering munition that launches, loiters in the air waiting for a target, then dives and detonates. Compared with the MQ-9, it is far cheap. Here is a simple truth that makes you want to slap your thigh on a battlefield with real air defenses. Slow and expensive drones are targets, not wets. So what is the few? The battlefield has already written the answer very clearly. Cheap, expendable, mass-usable small drone. The United States itself is learning fast. A low-cost attack drone system called Lucas costs about $35,000 per unit, with an 800-kilometer range and an 18-kilogram warhead. This is a reverse-engineered version of Iran's Shahd 136, built by a private company called Spectre Works. A U.S. general publicly called it buy and dispenta. One MQ-9 Reaper's price can buy 942 Lucas units. The comparison needs no further con. Next, let us meet the key publicly listed players in this track and tell you which one is most worth betting on. First, a company with a name that sounds like science fiction, Anduril. Founded by Silicon Valley investor Palmer Luckey, the guy who created the Oculus VR headset and sold it to Facebook, Anduril takes a completely new path. Instead of following the traditional defense procurement cycle of developing for a decade before delivery, it iterates weapon systems at tech company speed. Its product line includes the autonomous reconnaissance strike drone Altius, the drone intercepting Roadrunner, and various AI command systems. Its latest funding round valued it at $60 billion, backed by top Silicon Valley investors. But Anduril has two issues. First, it is private, so ordinary investors cannot buy the stock. Second, its products underperformed in real combat testing on the Ukrainian battlefield. Ukrainian security forces found that Altius drones repeatedly crashed and failed to hit targets in actual fighting, so they stopped using it in 2024. Of course, the reason is understandable. After 4 years of grinding, the electronic warfare environment between Ukraine and Russia is extremely complex. Throwing what was basically still a prototype into that meat grinder naturally led to setbacks. Anduril is surely re-engineering and hardening it against jamming, but right now it remains out of reach for regular investors and can only serve as a trend reference. Second, Red Cat Holdings, stock ticker Archiade. This is a small defense drone company based in Puerto Rico with subsidiaries like Teal Drones. Its main products are small military reconnaissance drones. Its growth story is very eye-catching. Third quarter revenue in 2025 surged 647% year-over-year. It just won a $35 million U.S. Army contract for the Black Widow reconnaissance drone, and in 2026 its stock has already risen more than 60%. It even has a 2 times leveraged ETF, showing how hot the market is, but let me be honest, Airsheet's fundamentals are still fragile. The company remains deeply unprofitable with a pre-tax profit margin of negative 252%, meaning it loses $2.50 for every dollar it pours. Short sellers have previously pointed out that some contract amounts were overstated, with actual contract sizes much smaller than claimed. I am not saying RCAT has no chance, but it looks more like a high volatility speculative play than a steady long-term investment suitable for small % bets, but not for going all in. Now let us seriously talk about the most worthwhile focus in this entire track, AeroVironment, ticker AVIBA. AeroVironment is not a newcomer. It was founded in 1971 and is headquartered in Arlington, Virginia. In the past, the company was best known for small tactical drones that followed the Pridor and especially the Switchblade series, Switchblade 300 and 600, tube-launched reconnaissance, and strike drones that have seen extensive real-world deployment on the Ukrainian battlefield. Why do I say AV is the most certain investment target? Several reasons. First, its products have battlefield validation. The Switchblade series has fought in Ukraine, real conflict proven, not PowerPointed concepts. Militaries hate buying untested gear, and AVIVES has passed the test. It also acquired Blue Halo, adding laser weapons, Locuste system, and counter-drone capabilities, perfectly tapping into huge defensive demand. Second, its order backlog is at an all-time high according to the latest earnings report. Confirmed funding backlog exceeds $1.1 billion, with full-year expected revenue around $1.9 billion. Up more than 140% year-over-year, the U.S. Army has announced plans to procure at least 1 million drones over the next 2 to 3 years, and AVI is one of the main suppliers. Third, capacity is expanding sharply. The company is building a new factory in Salt Lake City, Utah, expected to triple capacity by the end of 2026. This means the revenue ceiling is genuinely being lifted, with real growth runway in the coming quarter. Fourth, policy mode provisions in the U.S. National Defense Authorization Act restrict Chinese and other foreign-made drones from U.S. military procurement directly benefiting pure American manufacturers. Like AV, competitors face artificially high entry barriers at the policy level, of course. AVIV has short-term risks too. It recently lost a space-related contract, the SCAR project, causing the stock to plunge 17% in a single day before recovering most of the drop. Analysts view the sell-off as an overreaction because SCAR represented only about 5% of expected revenue. Core operations were barely touched after the correction. The price now offers a more reasonable entry point. Multiple Wall Street firms have upgraded ratings on AVAVE with price targets ranging from $330 to $400. My conclusion. In the entire universe of modern warfare, beneficiary, stocks, AVI is currently the most solid, battlefield-wide, clearly growing, publicly tradable option you can buy. It is not a fast, in-and-out speculative name, but a legitimate 3 to 5 year thematic long-term investment, provided you can tolerate the contract-driven volatility typical of defense stocks and its still elevated valuation. The future of the entire drone industry is certain. The battlefield has validated the value of cheap, expendable drones. Major military powers worldwide are accelerating procurement, and this order wave is only just beginning. eVive sits right at the crest of this wave, with proven products, massive orders, and concrete capacity, expansion plans. That is why I believe it is the most worthwhile investment here. Of course, one final reminder. This discussion is about war trends and business logic. It does not constitute specific investment advice. Entering the market carries risk. Please make independent judgments based on your own risk totter. The modern warfare lessons trilogy ends here. From Ukraine to Iran, from shotguns shooting down drones to AI-generated videos getting 25 million views, the world is changing faster than most of us realize. The shape of war is changing, so is the logic of investment. I hope these 3 parts help you see more clearly amid all this transit. The above investment analysis is for reference and learning purposes only, and does not constitute investment advice. Defense stocks are heavily influenced by policy, contracts, and geopolitics, leading to significant volatility. Investors should make independent judgments and act within their means.